Welcome to Session 5 of Working with Faithful James. This is our final session. Today we will cover the dangers of wealth, endurance in trials, and the power of prayer. Before we begin, we have to ask ourselves, are there thin places where heaven and earth draw close, where divine truth slips into view amidst the ordinary? These moments challenge our assumptions, inviting us to reconsider the limits we have placed on what is possible. Is it possible that James is not merely condemning wealth, but inviting us to see through the illusion of permanence, showing us that wealth, like other worldly idols, hides decay even while it dazzles? Is it possible that the patience James encourages is not just waiting, but an act of spiritual attention, one that invites us to notice thin places, moments where endurance becomes participation in God's unfolding kingdom? These questions push us to consider that what James teaches may be far more radical than it first appears, calling us to live with eyes open to a reality that transcends the material and temporal. Now let's get into things as we continue to consider that. James 5:1-6 begins with a strong condemnation of those who hoard wealth and exploit others. He writes in verse 2, "Your riches have rotted and your garments are moth-eaten." This vivid imagery reminds us of the fleeting nature of material wealth and the inevitable decay that comes with earthly treasures. James is not criticizing wealth per se. Rather, he is warning against the mindset that leads to hoarding and selfishness. The wealthy whom James condemns are portrayed as being blind to the suffering they cause, as they accumulate riches at the expense of those who labor for them. Here he picks up on the strong Jewish prophetic tradition echoed in Amos 8:4-6, where the prophet condemns those who oppress the poor for personal gain. Here we recall the later insights of Augustine of Hippo, the brainchild of Martin Luther's Augustinian monastic order, and who himself vehemently critiques the effects of greed and gluttony. Augustine insists that these vices stem from a disordered love, an attachment to created things over our Creator. In his work, City of God, he argues that such desires lead to a separation from God and render us incapable of true happiness and fulfillment. For Augustine, the sin of greed is not just about the possession of wealth, it is about the insatiable desire that drives us to seek security and identity in material stuff. He considers gluttony similarly, by emphasizing that indulgence in food and drink can also reflect a deeper spiritual malaise as it distracts from the pursuit of divine truth. Amassing excessive wealth is akin to consuming food and drink in excess of our need, in effect monetary gluttony. James reinforces this by portraying wealth as a potential barrier to experiencing authentic community and faithfulness. He warns in verse 3, "Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire." This vivid image emphasizes that wealth, when hoarded, turns against the possessor, spiritually consuming them. James' warning reminds believers that all they have is a gift from God, echoing the prologue of his letter, and it is meant to be shared. When believers focus on accumulating riches, we risk losing sight of our purpose, serving others and glorifying God. In verses 7-12, James shifts his focus to endurance in the face of trials. He encourages us to be patient, likening our waiting to that of a farmer's who depends on the seasons for harvest. "You too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near," he exhorts us in verse 8. This call for patience is crucial as it challenges the immediate gratification mentality prevalent in society. By referencing the example of Job, who endured great suffering and ultimately found restoration, James provides us a model of perseverance that transcends temporary struggles. James concludes this section with a reminder about integrity in speech, urging believers not to swear oaths rashly. He echoes his brother Jesus' teaching in Matthew 5:37, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no." This reinforces the importance of honesty and reliability in a community where trust is foundational. Frankly, say what you mean and mean what you say. The final section, verses 13-20, centers on the power of prayer as a means of healing and restoration within the community. In verse 16, James states, The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. This verse is iconic, but it is frequently used as a proof text, which means pulling a biblical passage out of context to make an argument that's not actually what the text means to say. James 5:16 is often proof texted to say that prayer's effectiveness depends on our righteousness or moral perfection. However, this understanding can lead to discouragement or guilt among believers who feel inadequate. James's focus is more accurately on the communal aspect of prayer. He emphasizes that prayer is not merely an individual endeavor, but a collective act of faith. Confessing our sins to one another and praying together fosters mutual support and accountability. The example of Elijah's prayer, which had a direct impact on the weather, illustrates that prayer connects us with God's will and empowers us to participate in His transformative work. Furthermore, the call to forgiveness underscores the relational dimension of prayer and echoes Jesus' own teaching in Matthew 6:12. Forgive us our sins, as we also have forgiven those who have sinned against us. This connection between prayer, forgiveness, and healing reflects the heart of the Christian community. In other words, the church community, where restoration is both sought and given. Thank you for joining these sessions of Working with Faithful James. As we close, may these teachings inspire you to live out your faith through just action, enduring hope, and faithful prayer within your community and your church.